Hello and welcome to Equilibrium Television. Today we'll be reviewing the Fitbit Ionic smartwatch and answering whether or not you should buy this product. I've been a longtime Fitbit user, having bought the first Charge HR back in early 2016. I'll be putting a video to that review above. The Fitbit Charge HR's longevity, simplicity, and utility was good all around. Ultimately, however, it met its fate in a swimming pool. A bag of rice salvaged it for about a week until it slipped away. Following this, I upgraded to the Charge HR2, which has served me extremely reliably since replacing my old tracker back in early 2018. To date, I have only had to replace the band once on this tracker, and the second band has had no issues whatsoever. Recently, I was tempted into buying and trying out the Fitbit Ionic smartwatch for about $163 on Amazon. I recently found a deal on Walmart's website where the Fitbit Ionic was only sold for $150. It's extremely unlikely that I would have ever bought the smartwatch at its original asking price of around $250 to $300. It's just not potent enough, and its less than perfect GPS and paywalls make it an extremely gimmicky and unappealing device. Flashy? Sure. I was only tempted into buying and trying out the Fitbit Ionic after seeing a price half the original asking price. So at the end of the day, the standards that I would have for buying this watch would be the GPS would have to be as accurate or more accurate than my phone's GPS. And I could sync music to the watch without needing a specific kind of Wi-Fi, or I could just use a cord, and if it accepted more cards under its Fitbit Pay feature. As a runner, I can make do with my phone and my original Fitbit 2 Charge HR2. So that's kind of my overview of the Fitbit Ionic. I would not recommend it. I have not looked outside of Fitbit. I know that Garmin has some good products. I am definitely not interested in the Apple Watch simply because of the asking price. However, that being said, I prefer the Charge 2HR simply because it does what it needs to do. It tracks my heart rate, it tracks my sleep. It's durable. It doesn't really jostle around too much on my wrist. It's very practical, and it's small, so it doesn't really get in the way when you're trying to do things. And it can be kind of covert as well. It's not necessarily screaming at you saying, oh, look, I'm on this person's wrist. It does its job. So that being said, the biggest negative in my eyes with the Fitbit Ionic and what really shoots itself in the knee is all the pre-installed apps it comes with, the paywalls specifically. I want to emphasize the paywalls that basically negate the cheaper upfront asking price of this device. Every clock face that you want to get that's outside of the presets that they give you 24 hours to try out, and then they'll make you pay for the clock face. There are some neat features with some of these clock faces, like, hey, you can track your mood, you can track, I think, your water intake on the smartwatch's face. And then also with music, you get 300 songs or 200, I think it's 300 songs that you can transfer from your computer to your watch. But again, it asks you to install a desktop application in order to do this. And then it gets very particular as to the kind of Wi-Fi you can use. So if you're in a hotel or you're in an airport, you can't sync your music. You have to be on a home network, basically. There's a list of acceptable Wi-Fi networks they let you use. For in-depth, quote-unquote, insights into your sleep, they also charge you money to get, which I feel like if you're paying this much for a smartwatch, that should kind of just be part of the smartwatch's features. They make you pay for coaching as well, like if you want to have a personal fitness trainer on your smartwatch or whatever. That I can kind of see, understand adding a paywall to, so that's not really a huge negative. And I'm kind of going back a little bit here, but with the music, they give you Pandora and Deezer as two music apps you can try, but you have to be a premium member on Spotify in order for this to work on your watch at all. And Deezer you also have to have a membership with. They give you a free month with Deezer. So, if you're away from home or whatever, and you can't immediately sync your smartwatch to your computer, then you can use these as kind of an ad hoc measure. But definitely not ideal. It makes you dependent on those apps. So that's kind of a big drawback. And then there's other bloat apps, as I'd like to call them. Like they throw Starbucks on there, and you can remove these and you can delete these somewhat easily by going to the options in your phone, but it's not immediately straightforward. It's not the intuitive way of like, clicking the gear icon. You actually have to click on the icon itself, and then you can go into that app and delete it. But anyway, a lot of bloat apps. There's also something that they throw into the mix after, like, asking you to pay for all these additional services that some of them should probably just come with the watch. They also say, oh, can you take part in this heart study, and we'll use this data to, from what I could tell, and as you can see on the screen here, the study was looking at heart arrhythmia. They would be using this information for public health decisions, basically, in the future. So if then that's optional. You don't have to do that. They ask you if you're interested, just to help. But I think that that's very boisterous of them for to ask you, hey, you want to give us your data, which really has some monetary value, and then they're asking you to pay for everything else. So in my mind, it's like, maybe you should be, if you say you want to sign up for the heart study, maybe you should give me like a year of the music app for free. But see, I'm already on the playing field of I should pay for music, even though, this thing is big enough to the point where it basically feels like you're wearing an iPod Shuffle on your wrist. And the iPod Shuffle can store more songs than 300, but I digress. So moving on to the utility of the Ionic, the GPS is not as accurate as the phone GPS. It's a lot more rough estimate, but it does a decent job. Definitely not as I can make do with what I have, and given all the negatives that I just mentioned, I'd much rather stick with the system that I have going. Until the watch itself offers more for, you pay for the watch and you get these features with it rather than, being paywalled. It's a little bit complex to navigate, so it's not like super intuitive. You kind of have to understand that you have to go swipe right to get to all of your different apps, which really only about 3 or 4 of them are actually useful, to me anyway. And there's a couple of settings that you can adjust on it if you go up. But again, syncing the music can be a pain in the butt. And also, you need to get the desktop application. So the positive with the utility is that it's hands-free running. So for the music I did get Deezer for the Ionic just to try out, just to get the experience, because I wanted to see, do I actually prefer using the watch without having my phone, And I found that usually I actually am just fine with the system that I have. I felt a little bit bare without it at first, and that's just something that, you probably just get used to. But that is a pro that you can run without having your phone. You don't have to hold something in your hand or wear a belt or anything unless you're carrying water for a long run. But for people who are just running to stay in shape, 2 to 6 miles a few days a week or something like that, this is good for that. It's good enough, but I don't see the cost benefit paying off with this device. I'll move on to the last category, which is looks. It does look pretty nice. The menu takes some getting used to, as I mentioned before. It can use some improvement. And like I said before, it feels like I'm wearing an iPod Shuffle. So it's a little bit clunky, but I think that's true of all smartwatches like that. And really, I love the charge too. It's so simple and straightforward, right? You have one button, and you can actually tap it to go through a variety of data that is just, gives you a wealth of information about your day, steps, heart rate, tap it again, calories burned, miles walked, tap it again, active minutes, stairs, and then tap it again, and it gives you, active hours that you've walked that day. And you just hit a button. It gives you another menu for your heart options. Tap it again, and you can choose what kind of exercise you're doing. You have a stopwatch. You have a relax app feature. And it's just so much more that you can do with this simple tracker. And then you upgrade for an extra, I guess at this point it's like $50, but originally it was like $150. And it's just not worth all the extra money that you're going to be shoveling out. So that is my review of the Fitbit Ionic. I would not recommend it. If you're going to get a Fitbit, I would go with a tracker. I would go with the Charge 4, I think is what they're on now. I know that the 3 got some kickback because it really didn't change much in the ways of, features with versus the Charge 2. So I would go with the Charge 4. That's a very good tracking device. I don't even think they make the Fitbit Surge anymore, but I also don't really know. I don't think that had any GPS features. The big things that would pull, like I said, that would pull me in and convince me to buy a smartwatch like this is if I could transfer music directly from my computer to the smartwatch via a cord simply, and if I could use the pay feature, which by the way, only certain credit cards are accepted with that pay feature, and none of mine were. So you have to really look at that list. So if they had more cards that they accepted, and also if the GPS was better. And also changing songs on the watch, it's kind of hard to do on a run, but if you just had a 1 or 2 button that you could push, and I don't think I played enough with it to be able to get to that point. Maybe you can. I've already actually started returning it just because it wasn't what I was hoping for it to be. I'm going to wait to see if they can make something better in the next few years. But if not, I might just end up switching companies. So that being said, thank you for watching. If you have any opinions on the Fitbit Ionic or any of the Fitbit smartwatches or any smartwatch, feel free to comment below, like this video, subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video. Ciao.